Hey, folks, welcome back to another edition of the Baseball Dad podcast. So today we're doing another interview, and I'm excited for this episode only because we have a great guest. His name is Dr. Josh Heenan, and we've met before in the past. So we have a mutual friend, a great pitching coach, named Phil Rosengren, and Phil had shared one of his blog posts that if you are an athlete that is developing, or a pitcher that's developing, and that I mean, you know, you're in high school or you're moving up. He wrote a blog post on what qualities needed to throw 90 miles per hour, and I read everything that Phil puts out because he's such a good guy. And I clicked on this, and I was like, man, this is great. This is such a great post, especially if you are in that phase, and just inspired me to invite Josh on the show. We'll point you to all of this information as we go on. But Josh, first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for making the time today.
Hey, thank you, Paul. I'm really glad that Phil connected us.
Yeah. And so let's give the 1 minute background of everything. Tell us all things Dr. Josh Heenan.
Yeah, so I am a doctor of integrative medicine, board certified doctor of integrative medicine, which is not a medical doctor, has a more similar scope to a naturopath, chiropractor, PT, so get some manual skills in there. But really, I consider myself an educated meathead. I'm a strength coach at heart. That's really where we see our bread and butter with our athletes. I've been past 10 years or so in the private sector. Had our first guy crack the majors. We've had him for 8 years. Troy Scribner with the Angels, which is, you know, a great thing to have. It's nice to have guys that are in the majors training with us, but really having a guy come through our program right at the beginning of college, all the way through minors and all that is big. And spent 5 years as the head strength coach for Sacred Heart University, small D1 school in Fairfield, Connecticut. And that's my spiel.
Yeah, awesome. So I always like to start off with this question. Well, let me back up first. One of the reasons I really wanted to have him on the show is I want to discuss this 90 mile per hour formula that he's come up with that I think is so great. But also too is that I think when we've had Mike Reinold on the show and other guys that are kind of in your universe, you give us such a unique perspective of what goes on with a pitcher. Because I think you guys kind of see all the things that go wrong, you know, when you're working with pitchers. Yep. And you also you're also a big part of the corrective process. But I think game coaches and stuff like we kind of can get bogged down sometimes, you know, in that stuff. We can lose sight of it. So that's the first thing. But I just wanted to mention. So let's say, I always like to start with this question. Let's say we're sitting at Starbucks and we're having coffee, and I got a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid who's developing, showing some potential, and I'm trying my best as a dad to give him the best opportunity. What do I need to know?
Yeah, my big thing is first, you got to keep the goal. So if your kid is, you know, someone that you really believe and you believe they can reach that next level, whether it's college ball or professional, then you got to give them those opportunities to actually be realistic with those expectations. But we want to build well-rounded athletes. So if you move well and then you add some strength to that, really good things happen. We've had probably getting close to 100 professional athletes through our doors and through our program over the years. And the one thing that runs through with every single one of them is they're multi-sport studs in high school. Most of them are all state in one or two sports, and we want them to be well-rounded because you got to figure out what race you want to be racing. And I see a lot. One of our hubs is in both of our hubs, are in Fairfield County, and you know we got very type A personalities running around all the time, and it's great. It creates a really good environment for development. But we got to figure out what race we're running. And if the race is to have your kid on ESPN when they're 12 years old, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you also have to understand that, do you want them to be playing when they're a senior in high school or a freshman in college or trying to make the majors? Because if you're running the race to get them only prepared for that next step of making the Little League World Series, I think you're not really looking at it straight on and not giving your kid an opportunity to really develop.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I think I almost feel like we've talked about on other podcasts. I almost feel like we've moved the majors down right? Like making it used to be like, getting a scholarship or going to the pros or playing in college. Now it's kind of like, can you get on that, the most important thing is like this next thing that's kind of coming up, these tournaments or in showcases and stuff like that. So
absolutely.
I love that you said multi-sport athlete, because I think that's super important. I just had 2 emails this morning of dads asking me similar questions. So I'm 100% in agreement on that. I think there was a stat, you might know it, but one of the NFL draft, I think. I don't remember the exact.
Oh,
the majority.
Something like 83% of all guys that were drafted in the NFL played at least 2 sports throughout high school.
Yeah.
I don't quote me on those numbers, but I think it's somewhere around there.
It was the majority. We could say that for sure. Definitely the majority of first round picks played that. So let's talk about this 90 mile per hour formula, because this is. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to encourage you guys to. Josh is going to give out all his info, but go to joshheenan.com and search for this post, the 90 mile per hour formula, especially if you are the age that we talked about. For my money, developing that now, as we were talking before, that our program is very simple. Our program is definitely for an athlete who's starting to train. It's getting control of your body. But this is like, to me, this one little slide that you have up. It's like dropping the pin on your mobile app. Your what am I trying to say? Your Maps app on your phone.
Yep.
I want to move to this town called 90 miles per hour. And what do I need to get there? This is the first thing that I've seen, and maybe I just missed it, but this is the first thing I've seen that says, here are some real measurements that you can kind of shoot for. Let's just talk about this. How did you come up with it? What was the research? And I want to hear all about it.
All right. So the 90 mile an hour formula was accidentally discovered about 8 years ago. I was training a guy by the name of John Murphy. He's now a Army coach, baseball coach, was in the Yankees organization for a little while. And I realized that a lot of the qualities he had were very similar to the other athletes I've had that throw 90. Now, John was a shortstop in college, but, could easily crank it up to 92, 94 on the bump if he was out there. So I was trying to figure out how do we string this along, and how do we create a roadmap that not only we can have guys aim for, but also can kind of guarantee us they're going to be able to throw 90 and know that they're going to stay healthy. And that's the thing that I think most people see online, especially Twitter, where it's gained some traction, is that the 90 mile an hour formula is not only a parameter for me to say, all right, if you can do these things, you can throw 90 miles an hour without question. What it really is a great balance of the body, making sure that we have the right movements down so that you can do this as long as you want to do it. I think getting someone, like our pro guys, we want to get them to the majors, but I don't want them to make the majors. I want them to stay in the majors for 15 years and be healthy. So, and that's the same thing with our high school guys. So that's where we came up with it, and I've really teased it out. And now we've used it if you include other people that have reached out to me and have implemented it into their own training, we're getting close to 1,000 athletes, and we have yet to have one that can hit all the metrics on the 90 mile an hour formula and can't throw 90 miles an hour. And there's some caveats in there as we go through the bullet points, but the caveats are that sometimes they can't translate it onto the mound, which means that there's a breakdown on the mound mechanics. Right.
So let's go through this kind of step by step, because what I want to make sure is that as we give out this formula, these 4 measurements, that we also talk about that. So when you say a deadlift, 400 pounds for 1 rep, I want to make sure that we don't send a 116-year-old to the gym.
To the emergency room.
Right. So let's go through these one by one. I have it in front of me if you want me to read them off, and then you can kind of talk, or if you want to go through, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'll talk right through them. So the first category is our momentum potential. And really what I see is that we need to be able to generate enough momentum. This comes from myself. I'm 5'9". I was 155 pounds in high school. I played low-level college baseball, junior college, and then got cut from a D1 program. I could hit all these metrics except my minimum momentum potential, which is our height in inches times 2.5 equals our minimum ideal body weight. So if you're looking at a guy like me who's 5'9", you want to have me at about 175 pounds is our minimum ideal body weight. And we just look at that as the metric that is run through with all of our athletes to know that they have enough muscle mass to generate the force, but also enough muscle mass to protect their body from the forces that we're putting on our body when we're throwing this hard. I believe that the optimal range is somewhere between 2.75 and 3.25 times our inches in height is the optimal range, but 2.5 is definitely the minimum that we see.
So let's take that if we're a 6-foot kid, we're looking at two. You're smarter than me, man. You can do the math.
Yeah, we're looking at about $180.
Okay, awesome. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, give or take.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's like I said, that's just our general baseline that we're looking for. The next bullet point is our force production. So literally the ability just to put force into the ground. That's where we're going to generate our force that we can transfer into the ball on the mound. And we want our deadlift to be 400 pounds for one rep as a minimum. Now, like you said, we don't want to be sending people to the hospital. We're looking for good form. We're looking for neutral. And I don't discriminate between with this one. We don't discriminate between sumo deadlift, conventional deadlift, trap bar. It doesn't matter to me. There's different, another topic for another day, but everybody's body types can be a little bit different and more efficient at certain patterns as far as strength building and strength training. So we're just looking for that minimum baseline saying, you know what, if you can pull 400 pounds off the ground, that means one, you're healthy enough to deadlift, you're healthy enough to touch your toes, and two, that you actually have that force production available. So that's our next category as far as our force production goes.
So let's say now I'm a dad, I hear this. I don't know, I don't even know if my son does deadlift. Do they deadlift? Like what would be the steps to make sure that we start doing this safely on a deadlift?
I could give out the kind of canned answer, like you want to make sure you have a coach watching you, which is fine. And I think that's important to make sure you have someone modifying and making sure that you're qualified to do it. We look for, can you touch your toes? And then let's start you with a kettlebell in between your legs, just as a regular kettlebell deadlift, making sure you have a neutral spine so you don't see any flexing on the spine, whether it's from your lumbar, thoracic, or cervical vertebrae. And no extension there either, nice and neutral. And then just picking that kettlebell off the ground and standing nice and tall, erect, and then controlling it back down. And then from there, you can start progressing it. I think what's lost in a lot of the training is we want to be great movers first, like we talked about. We want to be great athletes. I want to create really good movers first. So if you deadlift with a rounded spine, your neck's looking up, and you're trying to hit that 400 pounds, that's not going to really lead us into the good movement patterns that we need to be able to throw hard and stay healthy. And that's our ultimate goal.
Right. You just said it there. So this is like the fight that is throwing hard and staying healthy. And I think, so I don't want to show off, but I have deadlifted 405. I'm just going to say, just going to put it out there. It was one time, and I haven't been close to it since, but it was actually a funny story. Do you know Jim Smith from Diesel Strength?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so he's like my best friend. He's one of my two best friends in the world. And so he made me a bet that I couldn't do it. And so I'm not a good, I'm Irish, right? It's not, and so it took me 8 weeks, and I got there for one rep, and he can deadlift 550. And I said, look, man, you've been lifting for 20 years, and in 6 weeks, I became 80% of the lifter that you are in 20, another 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm going to blow past that 550. Yeah. He didn't like that, but,
no.
So the question, but that's the key is I think we see a lot of things out there that is the act of velocity. So I see these new mechanics, which I'm kind of confused at how Nolan Ryan was able to throw 100 miles an hour with those old mechanics. But these new mechanics are, supposedly going to throw harder. And what I see is a lot of people sacrificing. I like to say they pay a higher price per pitch. to get that extra miles, where they're compromising mechanics to throw harder, to light up a radar gun. And so I know that I could probably go and deadlift 400 pounds now, but I know that I could not do it with good form. I knew if I rounded my back and I picked up, and so I think a good point to make here that I want to get your opinion on is let's talk about that when form falls apart, we're putting ourselves at real risk of injury, whether we have a weight in our hand or a baseball in our hand. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. And I think everything gets blown out of proportion as far as weighted ball goes and deadlifting a lot of weight. We have guys that deadlift 5'6", close to 700 pounds, and they go to their major league organizations and they say, all right, now that you're with us, we don't want you to deadlift more than 225. You can go as many reps as you want. Well, first of all, I think the higher reps you're going to likely break down more just because of general fatigue. So that's a big red flag to me. We've already trained and developed our athletes to handle that force, and they're handling it efficiently. And that's what we want. We want mechanically efficient movements. And the thing that we see a lot with like our UCL injuries is we see for the nerds and science people out there, we see what the SFMA would call one of our screening processes, a cervical spine rotational SNCB. All that really means for a general population is that you can't naturally move your neck without having some compensations. Now, if you think about what we see a lot of times in our deadlifts, and something that drives me nuts, and I'm in the process of putting a post together on it, is when we're deadlifting, and if you watch videos of people deadlifting and they have their head up where they're actually in hyperextension of their neck when they're going to grip that bar on the ground, and they're looking straight up and they can see, if they were looking in a mirror, they could see themselves. That position is not only mechanically inefficient for general day-to-day moving, but also it's going to start training patterns of dysfunction in our neck and core stability, because our core really, our trunk stability, core stability, whatever you want to call it, runs from our hips all the way to our neck. So if we have a dysfunction at our hips, it can migrate through our neck, and if we have something at our neck, it can migrate down to our hips. Now, if we're dysfunctional at our neck, we're going to be dysfunctional at the joints next to it. So where are we going to be dysfunctional? We're going to be dysfunctional at the thoracic spine, cervical spine, and the shoulder. Well, if we're dysfunctional at any of those levels, it's going to throw off our mechanics when we're throwing. And it might not happen overnight, but if you start to crank up the innings and getting more reps, now you start asking for trouble. And we have an opportunity, I would say to our athletes and to our coaches, we have an opportunity every time we walk into the gym to get better or worse. And if we're not getting better and we're not becoming more efficient, we're actually doing our athletes and our clients a disservice. So every time we touch a bar, we need to be moving more efficiently. Anytime we pick up a weighted ball or a baseball or anything, we want to be teaching more efficient mechanics so that we have less of an opportunity to break down. And that's something that we want to drill in, even if it's something as simple as a deadlift. I don't care about our athletes hitting the 90-mile-an-hour formula unless their next paycheck is derived on it. What I care about is them moving more efficiently. So if we have a guy that's at 225 and wants to get to 400, well, he's got to hit 250, 275 before he hits all those other things with really good form.
I hope every pitching coach that's listening to this and every coach that's listening to this is inspired to go find somebody in your area like Josh. Because everything, this is how we talk about the 4 pillars of working with people who can help us do what we want, what we're trying to instruct our players to do. And there's so many things he said in there. You should hit the back 15, 20, hit it back, the 15-second thing on your phone and listen to that again, because I'm telling you guys, that is the difference. The difference is having somebody who understands those little things about technique, about position, and how those things affect the rest of the body. You might have a kid with a shoulder problem, and it might not be a shoulder problem. It might be that he's using bad form with his buddies in the garage, in the weight room. And how are we going to know that unless we pull on these guys who are so brilliant that can help us figure this stuff out? So thank you for that. That was awesome. Let me ask you this, though. It's just one more question this deadlift. Guys are going to train for and stuff like that. I know how 16, 17-year-old kids do. They're going to see how it goes every time they go in the weight room. How much they have. How often should we be testing that? And, just give me your thoughts on that.
I think, it's where the end goal is in mind. We will hit maybe a 1 rep max with our like elite level guys that are really making a big push and we're cranking it. We'll do a 1 rep max maybe every 3 to 6 weeks. But to be honest, it's not the number that they currently have in them, because, they can have a good night's sleep. They could have just broken up with a girlfriend. They could have really good nutrition or really poor nutrition that's going to throw these things off in a very short window. So what we're looking for is literally just a nice progression towards those numbers. So I would rather guys stick into, set the 2 to 5 at the beginning and really get their reps down and getting their quality reps down, and then start really loading it up. And until you hit about 315, we don't need to add any special, modifications of doing a lot of singles and doubles as far as, in the gym. We just want to get them moving efficiently and getting their body to understand those reps. You don't get good at throwing a baseball by throwing it, 6 times every other week. Right. You get good because you long toss and you work on different mechanical drills, and then you get your flat ground work, and then you start working pens, and then in the game. So you need those reps to start building up, and that's why we need to increase our volumes at the beginning of training. So if guys are listening to this and they just want to, and they've never deadlifted before, and they know they can touch their toes, and they're just working into those heavier weights as far as like actually putting on a barbell, we would encourage you to do something like 5 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 5, just to get yourself going and understanding the movement mechanics. And you have the best tool in the world right now, better than any coach out there. On the fly every single day, you have your phone. You can literally prop your phone up and look at those mechanics. And for anybody that's on Instagram that tags me in a post, my Instagram handle is @Dr. Heenan. All you do is tag me in a post and say, hey, how's my form? And I'll comment on there. And so won't a lot of other coaches. So you can always get another set of eyes. And once you see what you're doing right and wrong, it's really easy to pick up on your own. So you don't need to have a coach there every single rep to fix you. You just need to make sure that you're consistently working on that form.
That's awesome. I mean, you guys should really take them up on that, because I definitely have some experience with that, of things that I was doing that, and like they feel right when you're doing them, right? But if you don't have that visual cue and that coaching, if you can't, it's hard to see what your body's doing when you're doing it, right? So I would definitely, that's a great option. So let's move on to the next part of this. So number 2 is the barbell reverse lunge.
Yeah. So the next one is our stable power position, is what I call it, the barbell reverse lunge. And what we're looking for is our body weight on the bar, 10 reps on one side, and then 10 reps on the other side. That is our minimum baseline. So the reverse lunge is basically just the opposite motion of our throwing position. So when we go to throw off the mound, we're doing a forward lunge. But our reverse lunge, I have found over time, it's easier on our knees, loads our glutes and hips a little bit better, forces our core stability to be up a little bit more. Just a lot of little tweaks in there that's why I like that motion. And I'm not against forward lunges or split squats or anything like that. And a lot of people take the 90-mile-an-hour formula and kind of say, oh, well, he only reverse lunges. Well, that's not true. We do a lot of things to get this number to be higher, but we want our minimum, our ideal body weight or our body weight on the bar for 10 reps on each side. And that just allows to know that we can control those forces. I can't tell you how many people that we have come in, whether high-level college or pro guys, that can't lunge well and they can't control their own body weight. I have a great story. We had a guy that was a left-hander, about 6 feet, about 205 pounds in high school, touched 96 on a regular basis. Absolute stud, one of the best pitchers in the country. Came to us, first day running through a full assessment, everything looked good, and then we did him a reverse lunge, just body weight, just wanted to see how he moved, and he literally toppled over. And I asked him, I was like, my mind was boggled. I'm like, you have no history, no neck problems, no shoulder, no back, no elbow, no nothing. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, okay. And then we did it again. He like kind of caught himself, went through the motion. It was really ugly. And I was like, what? I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how are you not like in pain every day walking around, let alone like throwing a baseball? And he's like, I don't know, I'm good. And Dad was over in the corner, and he's like, did you tell him you had 2 UCL surgeries? And I was blown away. He's like, oh, well, I didn't have it right now, so I didn't think I need to tell him. I was like, oh my God. So my whole thing with this, and this is, this kind of leads into the weighted ball stuff, is you got to be able to control your own motions and be able to control them with velocity and volume on a regular basis on the mound, or when you're running. I mean, all this stuff belays well into running as well. But if he can't control his motion on the mound or his motion just in body weight, there's no way he's not going to break down the mound at some level. And it may not happen overnight, but as the reps continue to go, as far as volume, as far as throws, he's gonna break down. And no coincidence that he had 2 major elbow surgeries before he was 18 years old. I mean, that's a tragedy right there. And I think that, a lot of people see that reverse lunge as something, that's a nice accessory exercise. Well, we have guys that we have freshmen in college that are reverse lunging 365 for reps. We have professional pitchers that are reverse lunging 455 for reps. I mean, that is some serious weight, and that means they can control, they hone their position, and they can control their position really well on the mound.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's so you brought up weighted balls while we're on it. I'd love to get your opinion on with weighted balls, because it's not anything new, but it's all the rage, So
yeah.
What are your thoughts on them?
I will go on the record and say I love weighted balls, but I also think that they need to be used at the right time in the right place for the right person with all modalities. I think exercise, therapy, drug interventions, weighted ball stuff. I think they're all medicines. They're all types of input we get to give the brain, and the brain is going to make the response it needs to a different outcome for every response we put in. So when we just blindly give someone a weighted ball, I think we're doing a disservice, and I think we're setting people up for failure. But I think, the reason we utilize them is we don't utilize them with everybody. We utilize them on a very particular basis with guys that need them to reach certain goals. And by goals, I mean either to make sure that they can handle the volumes that they're going to be having in an upcoming season, to make sure that we're clearing up, I know Phil and I will talk about some of this stuff. Sometimes we'll have an athlete that we share, and we'll, modify some drills with a weighted ball, but that's not the end all be all. We got to movement screen these guys first. We got to do an orthopedic screen. We got to make sure that they have hit these basic metrics. Giving a guy that can't lunge a weighted ball, lunge with their body weight, and give them a weighted ball is literally like asking a new driver to go on a race car track and run 200 miles an hour. You're asking for issues. Now, is there problems with weighted balls? Absolutely not, because I think a lot of the same things can happen with a 5-ounce ball or throwing a football. But I just think that we need to prepare our body for these movements first, and make sure that we're progressing them individually. And if there is pain, or if there is discomfort, or there starts to get tightness in the neck or shoulder or forearm, then that's a good time to shut it down and say, all right, well, why are you in pain? Why are you not feeling good? I like to say we're cautiously aggressive. I want to be aggressive with all of our athletes, but weighted balls are something that can highlight inefficiencies very quickly, and those inefficiencies can be injuries very, very quickly.
So my feeling on weighted balls, I'm very conservative on it. I'm kind of the mindset that 20% up, 20% down. I participated in years, another lifetime, some of those studies and saw the results of them. So I'm kind of a 4-ounce, 6-ounce guy. How do you feel about so let's say we've checked off all the boxes. What are your thoughts on those balls that go heavier than that? Because I see them go real heavy, but I don't see. I see it. You know what I mean? I don't see it on the underload side.
Well, so the underload, the velocities on an underload scare me a little bit more than the overload, just because I think the real reason that we have a lot of these shoulder and elbow injuries, especially the elbow stuff, is we can't decelerate the humerus as quick as we need to, just that arm bone. And I think that's where we get a lot of these velocities creep up, and our bodies can't handle those forces. So that's where we start to break down. So an underweighted ball scares me a little bit more than an overweighted ball. I know the research is definitely indicating that a heavier ball is going to be more valgus stress on the elbow. There's no denying that, but the decelerating forces is where I think we have a lot of issues. I have no problem with our guys going heavier with the weighted balls. Now we're not throwing around a 3 pound weighted ball. I've seen some crazy stuff out there, and I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
I don't think we need that. We go as heavy as a 14-ounce ball, but I actually have. I'll share with you later. And actually, there's a post I have online on Instagram that's a good one. I think a lot of good things happen when you utilize the right weighted ball for the right athlete at the right time. We've seen guys that have terrible, and we never fix throwing mechanics. We just work on true body mechanics. But we see guys that come in that have terrible throwing mechanics, and we'll give them a weighted ball just to see how they move, and all of a sudden it clears up a lot of things. And I actually think that's a more of a core stability issue. That's way outside the conversation here, but I think it really is a core insufficiency, and giving them a weighted ball or a counterbalance of a weighted ball. So sometimes we'll put like a 3 pound ball in their lead arm is a huge effector of creating good arm mechanics. So I just think that you don't need to go crazy with it on either end. Like you said, we don't go very heavy on the balls, but we'll go as heavy as a 12 or 14 ounce ball, depending on the athlete, depending on the goal. But most of the time we're staying low in that 9 ounce ball range.
Yeah, it's funny. You see these things with these kids, these 2 ounce balls, running 60 feet, curl hopping and throwing, and the radar gun says 90. And,
right.
You're a 90 mile an hour thrower now,
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So let's back up on this formula. We talked about deadlift. We talked about barbell reverse lunge. What's up next?
We look at the chin up as our key force transfer. So we look at, can you transfer the force from your trunk stability all the way through your shoulders, all the way through your hands? So we look at a 250 pound chin up for 1 rep, which would be, for a 200 pound athlete, we're looking to add 50 pounds of external weight to that athlete. So strapping it on them, whether it's a weighted vest or weight hanging from, belt, and totaling a minimum of 250 pounds. And what that does for us is it allows us to say, all right, this athlete has enough strength to both concentrically and eccentrically, so pulling ourselves up and decelerating ourselves down from a chin up. They have enough strength to cover those motions, which if you think about a baseball throw, we're decelerating the second half of that throw. There's a lot of distraction forces on our shoulder as we're releasing that ball in that last little blip of getting that ball out of our fingertips. So with those forces, we need to make sure that we can handle that stress. And I think this is the number one factor on the 90 mile an hour formula to predict whether or not we're going to have a shoulder or elbow injuries, because a lot of guys can't control themselves all the way up and all the way down. And that's a big issue. And it needs to be full shoulder flexion, arm extended at the bottom, and then bring yourself all the way up without poking your neck forward and reaching with your neck. You need to be nice and fluid through that motion so that will transfer to good mechanics on the mound and good just movement mechanics, not even arm mechanics.
Yeah, we Mike Reinhold was on. I'm sure you know Mike, and he was talking about that. We talking about how fast the arm is going and what the shoulder, everything has to stabilize. That I'm pretty sure you said it was 7,000 rotations. Like if you were to let it go, if you were to let the arm go and spin around, like 7,000 rotations per second. That was the speed that your arm goes from external rotation to internal rotation. And your body's trying to hold all that together. Pretty wild.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of the research right now is especially for UCL injuries, which is where we're really interested in, because this is a pretty big epidemic we're having right now. The research is showing that cadavers can only handle 50 newtons of valgus force on the elbow. Now, and we can make arguments that are cadavers the right things to be studying on or whatnot, but let's just take that 50 number and say, all right, well, the body can handle 50 units of force there, but when we're throwing, it's anywhere between 60 and 120. So where's the rest of the makeup on that? Where is the breakdown? Because we should be breaking down on every single throw. Well, that means we have muscle mass that's going to cover those tendons and ligaments that allows us to protect those motions. So I think the breakdown is really inefficient mechanics is a huge one. Too much volume of throwing, and also not having enough muscle mass and enough strength to decelerate those forces and have those forces run through the muscle mass instead of through the ligaments, which is where we get that breakdown.
Yes. I just really hope the pitching coaches that are listening to this, it's always my wish is that you guys are really, what I've learned with guys like Josh and guys like Mike Reinold and guys, I don't need to be as smart as them. I really don't. I think we all bring different skill sets. What I need to do is have a relationship with them and work with them. And we kind of put I like to use the chocolate and the peanut butter, together. And now we've got something that just makes the whole thing taste good, So I think, I hope that, as you're listening to this, you're seeing that you need a lot of people to kind of help you through this, whether you're a coach or a player or a parent, that they have to have more voices there. I mean, just this stuff, I can listen to it all day. But I just learned a long time ago that I'm going to let these guys be really good at what they do. And I'm going to be really good at what I do. And I'm going to try and make friends with all these guys and have relationships with them so that we work together, for the betterment of all of our pitchers. So this last one is interesting to me. I love this one. We're going to talk about, and we talked about it a little bit before, but let's talk about your body weight of where that needs to be in this formula.
Yeah. In that body weight number, like I said before, it needs to be that 2.5 times your body weight in height in inches. And then is our minimum body weight. So like I said before, it was, if I'm 5'9", I need to be 172 pounds is give or take where it needs to be. And then, the last one I have here is the arm power category, which we need to throw, a minimum of 300 feet in long toss. And that's something that we don't really work on with our athletes too much. That's where we rely on the pitching coaches and the baseball coaches to oversee making sure that they're progressing with their long toss and making sure that they're including that, because just basic physics, and we can argue again on launch angles and all that, and crow hopping and all that stuff. All I want to know with the 90 mile an hour formula is, can we cover that amount of ground? If you can cover 300 feet, generally speaking, you can throw 90 miles an hour, and it has to come 90 miles an hour out of the hand. So we know that you have it in you. Now, can you translate that into the mound?
Right. So when we talk about body weight and gaining weight, let's just clarify here that you're not talking about stopping at Dairy Queen on the way home from school every day. Correct? I mean, that's not the plan.
No, the goal is obviously muscle mass, because muscle mass is going to be able to generate force. I will say that I think that we never want our athletes to be overweight. One, for health reasons, but also two, just because it's not going to really add much to their ability, as far as generating that force. But what we have noticed is, if you look right through the hard throwers, of the MLB, take a guy like CC Sabathia. I mean, he's got a lot of weight behind him, and he's got a lot of extra fat to him. And I'm not advocating that anybody should get, don't get on the 90 mile an hour formula and get fat. That's not the goal. The goal is to get lean and strong. I think being 5 or 6% body fat as a pitcher may be detrimental in the long run. I think that, there may be a more optimal range of, that 8 to 15% body fat range, or 8 to 12%, just because there's no need to be super lean, and you're not fighting you're not trying to overcome your body like you are with sprinting or running. So a little extra fat mass is not a terrible thing. And again, I'm not advocating to be fat. I'm just saying that I think that momentum potential is important. It's a key piece of the puzzle, and we want as much muscle mass as we can get on those athletes. But we also want to make sure that we can get as much weight as we can on them too, to make sure that they can generate that force and be healthy. So it's a nice balance of all of those qualities.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sure we're on the same page here, where I see a lot of players, and I hear this a lot from dads, like, he's so muscular, he looks great, and he's got abs and he's got all these things. And I like in the back of my mind, I'm going, boy, you wasted a lot of time on things that look good. Where maybe if you didn't waste so much time on that stuff, you could, spend some time on things that will actually help, like, developing muscle mass and maybe not being so worried about being shredded. It's okay if you got, a few pounds on there. Just give me like your thoughts around that. Cause I know it's something that dads are they face with their kids. They all they translate, hey, the kid looks good. That must mean he's going to play good.
Right. And I think, I would rather take our athletes who can move well through the formula and can do their, 250-pound chin-up is no easy task for someone that does not do chin-ups regularly.
Right.
There's a lot that needs to go on there, and a little secret of chin-ups is that, you're going to have to overcome your body weight at some point. So you're going to want to be leaner to be able to hit your chin-ups and body weight. And I think that, the number here of 250 pounds for one rep is our baseline, but I think it should be 250 pounds for one rep or 10 chin-up and 10 body weight chin-ups is really where we're looking at right now. The 251 pound metric has run through with all of our athletes, but I think 10 chin-ups also should be another baseline. So if you're a 300-pound athlete, I think you should be able to do 10 chin-ups, which would be a very tough task. But at that point, you're going to be a lot leaner. You're going to look better if you can move your body weight well while you're move your body well with that much body weight than just focusing on doing like bicep curls or working on your abs. The end goal needs to be figured out a long time before this. And I know this is stuff, I've seen you speak and I know, especially with like hitting mechanics and throwing mechanics and stuff like that, we got to figure out where you want to be. And then let's do everything possible to get you there. If you want to look great, that's awesome. And I have no problem with that. Let's get you with someone that if you want to be a bodybuilder, be a bodybuilder. But the second that you start working with us, and you say your goal is to be, a high-level college athlete or high-level professional athlete, we're going to cater your training to make sure that you're healthy enough to run onto the field every single day and be darn close to 100%, if not 100%, and that you're going to be able to move really efficiently so that you can be the best athlete on the field so that you can perform the best and you have the most opportunities. If those are not in line with your goals, then, you're not, if your training is not in line with those goals, then you're not doing the right things to reach your goals. So I think that's kind of, fruitless for a lot of the athletes out there just doing bench press to look good.
Yep. Amen. Well, let's give everybody all the information on how they can contact you. There's opportunities to work with you. You've got some great programs. Where you write this great blog, and you have facilities. Let's give everybody all that information so they know how best to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so the easiest way to grab me is through my personal website, joshheenan.com. Our company website is advancedtherapyperformance.com. The company is Advanced Therapy and Performance. We have 2 locations in Connecticut. One's in Norwalk and one is in Stamford. And I am kind of branched out through the rest of the country. But the easiest way to grab us is either through my website or at Dr. Heenan on Instagram. And, I'm happy to answer emails and interact with people and always answering questions, as I know you are too. So, this is a big community, and we're going to be launching a shoulder and elbow research study pretty soon where we're going to take in a lot of information, and we want to be able to have the largest shoulder and elbow study for baseball players ever done. And we would love to get and interact with every single athlete that is out there playing baseball that wants to prevent their shoulder and elbow injuries. And then we're going to track them through a nice longitudinal study and give them some tools along the way to see if we can curtail this epidemic of some injuries.
Awesome. So I encourage you guys to reach out and get in touch with Josh. Follow what he's doing. And these are the things that I read, guys. I mean, I have to be honest with you. We've had Mike on. We've had Lance on. We've had all these other coaches, Chris Giselle and Troy. And these are the guys that, if you want to know who's coaching the coach, Josh and I have met, but this is the first time we've really had a chance to talk. But he's kind of been coaching me through all these resources he just gave you. I really look to these guys who are just so brilliant at what they do and their knowledge of the body and how they can really help us, help our pitchers. So these are the guys that are kind of coaching the coaches, so please pay attention, and check out everything that he's got. So, Josh, let's play a game. Let's play a little, maybe we'll do, I don't know if it'll be 20 questions, but it'll be a few questions. In one word, baseball health.
Proactive.
Baseball health.
Proactive.
Nice. What's your favorite exercise for you personally?
The push-up.
What do you think is the first thing every pitcher should do after he listens to this podcast?
Sign up for my newsletter. I really think there's a lot of good information. Honestly, no, I
agree.
A lot of good information, and I have a couple of hours of presentations for free out there, and question what people are saying. If I had all the answers, like I said before, every one of our athletes would be throwing 100 miles an hour. I really, I cherish what you're doing. I cherish what Phil does. Mike Reinhold, Eric Cressy, Brian D'Onofrio is my right-hand man in Stanford. We banter and question stuff every day. We don't all agree on everything. There's a lot of questions to be answered, and I think you got to be proactive with your questions and make sure that you're not just taking anything I say for granted because I might not be right.
What does every baseball dad need to know to help their kids succeed?
At the beginning, they got to be having a great time and having fun and doing it for the right reasons, and then they need to treat their body as a temple, and they need to learn to move well. Once they move well, really good things happen very quickly.
What's your favorite team?
Boston Red Sox.
Favorite player? Doesn't have to be present day.
Pedro Martinez, hands down.
Okay, so we're recording this after Game 1 of the World Series. Who wins the World Series and in how many games?
I go Astros in 5.
Wow. Really?
Yep.
I gotta know why.
I could be wrong. I like their chemistry. I really do. That could be that is a bold statement, but I like their chemistry. I like what they're bringing. This may turn out complete opposite of that. They may lose it in 5, but I just have a good feeling about the Astros right now.
You've coached a lot of athletes, and this will be the last question. There's some athletes that are just like better humans, right? That just, LeBron James was born with things that you and I don't have. But there's guys that seem to make the most with what they got. What do you feel, the athletes you've coached, what's special about the guys that have achieved the most?
They are so hungry for knowledge and so hungry to get out there and challenge things every single day. It's a battle, and I think that they just want to learn and they want to get better, and they won't accept no for an answer.
Awesome. So guys, if you're in any of those areas that you can get access to Josh or access to one of his trainers he's worked with, I would encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to go to joshheenan.com, sign up for the newsletter, get on the list, because the first question I asked Josh was baseball health, and he said proactive. And I know he's probably as frustrated as I am, is that a lot of times nobody cares about an injury until they're hurt. But it's the biggest thing that we see, and I think that's why guys like us, we're passionate about this, we're frustrated about it, because we see so much on the other side. And it's kind of like one of those things where you don't know until it happens to you. And the odds are, if you're going to pitch for any length of time, if you're 15 years old, you plan on pitching for the next 10 years, you're going to have something. You're going to have something. And to be proactive about it is really the key. And going to Josh's site, getting on his blog, following what he does, he has information that we're not going to be able to provide you. I wish we could. It's not what God made me. So get on their list, follow what Josh is doing, and I know it'll help you. So Josh, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate your time, and wish you all the best, man.
Hey, thanks for putting this out. This is resources I wish we had when we were younger, and I'm glad that we're able to get this out and provide good stuff and have people start asking better questions.